Hey everybody, Stacy here with Pitch Deck Fire, and I'm so glad you guys have joined us for another one of our pitch hacks of the week this week. If you haven't been with us before, we cover tips and tricks on pitching, pitch decks, sales decks, investor decks, and live presentations. So if you're a startup looking for funding or an established company looking for new customers, maybe you're even in an accelerator or an incubator program, all of you guys can find value in our pitch hacks here. So let's hop right into it. What's our pitch hack of the week this week? This week our pitch hack is thoughts on font use and types of fonts. So hopefully you know what a font is. Font is the way the text looks when you have it on a document of some sort. So if you're putting together a PowerPoint presentation for your pitch, the font is the way that the text actually looks, right? Comic Sans is a font, it's very funky. Arial is a font, it's very standard, right? It looks different, there's cursive fonts, that sort of thing. So there's different types of fonts that you can use. Your software, whatever software you use to put together your presentation, has some standard fonts. Sometimes those do and don't fit your particular company's aesthetic appeal. So you might have some specialty fonts that you use. If you've had somebody put together your logo and branding, they might have selected some fonts for you, given you some font files and said these are good fits for your company. If that's not the case, you may want to use some pretty standard fonts or fonts that fit really well with your company. You can choose what those are. When you work with a designer, they often ask if you have specific fonts you want them to use, and they may or may not choose new fonts for you that fit your brand a little bit better. The main point behind fonts is to really make sure that the text is conveyed in an effective way and is visually appealing and fits with the rest of the design. So when choosing fonts, that's something to consider. So there's two types of fonts, sans serif and serif. There's a lot of different types of fonts. I'm not going to go into all of the detail because we really don't need to get into the nitty gritty here, but sans serif and serif are the different fonts that I want to talk about. So sans serif is this one here, and it's traditionally used on the web. It's a very simple font. It's very clean lined, and serif is this one here. So serif, so you can see the serif is actually this little piece, this little taggy on the bottom and different parts of the font. I highlighted them here in red. That's the serif. So sans serif means it doesn't have that. Serifs can be very valuable because they help the eye to follow along a line of text. So if we're reading something in like a book or printed material, physically printed material, serif fonts can be really valuable because they help to move the eye along. That said, sans serif tends to be a better fit for online formats because it's just a different use of our eyes, and so we don't need the kind of movement, the lines as much. So sans serif is usually a better fit. I'm a big fan of some very basic sans serif fonts when we're using them in our decks. Open Sans is a big one. Roboto I think is a good one. Helvetica is one that Apple uses a bunch. Arial is a pretty standard one for PCs. There's some very simple and basic sans serif fonts that can be very valuable for you when putting together any documents that use specialty fonts or standard fonts. So generally speaking, when you're putting together a pitch deck, you're going to be using it in one of two ways. You're either going to be sending it as a send-ahead, so a document, a visual document, or you're going to be presenting it live with somebody as a visual aid behind you. When you're presenting, you always want it to be sans serif. You don't want serifs on that because it's a very different format. It's a very big format. We want it to be very simple and not too complicated on the slide. So I tend to err on the side of sans serif when we're doing a presentation. If you're sending it as a visual document, you're also more than likely sending that nowadays as a PDF. So it's still going to be on the computer. You're still sending it to somebody on the computer. Maybe you're hosting it on a site. It's going to be online or on a computer. So again, sans serif is the way to go. If for some reason you're going to be printing it out, or you plan to have large paragraphs of font on your deck that you're printing out, you may consider the serif fonts. But generally speaking, I would say for pitch decks, err on the side of sans serif. Some other thoughts on font that I want to share with you, it's very important, is if you're getting a deck designed by a designer and they put together a presentation and they use some fonts that better fit your aesthetic, and then they provide you those fonts, which they should, as we do here at Pitch Deck Fire. We'll provide you the font, we'll provide you the file. What you're going to have to do is download those fonts onto your computer in order to see and edit and use that file as a PowerPoint presentation or a keynote, either one. You're going to want the fonts downloaded, because if you don't have the fonts downloaded, your computer is going to change the font to some other font that's as close as it thinks it has to that font, and it will get things very messed up. Every font's different. It has, a different width of a letter, it has a different height, it has, differences in the font, and so those differences are going to make things get all wonky and messed up on your PowerPoint presentation. So it won't affect PDFs or things that are saved in like a PDF type format, but it will definitely affect a presentation in PowerPoint or in Keynote, those types of presentations. So you want to make sure if you're given a font that you download that onto your computer before you open up the file, so you're able to see, use, edit that file as you need to. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on font use and types of font. Hopefully you guys have found value in this pitch hack here today. If you have any thoughts on font that you'd like to share as well, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. If you have any ideas for upcoming pitch hacks, we have a link down below as well. I'd love to hear your ideas so we can answer them in an upcoming video. We do new pitch hacks every single week, so if you want to find out more about our next upcoming pitch hack videos, give us a little thumbs up or subscribe. I hope to see you guys here again soon. Again, I'm Stacy with Pitch Tech Fire. Happy pitching!